Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Like a Bank, where we show you how to think like a bank using the same strategies and principles that banks use to help you find more financial freedom in your life. I'm your host, Sarry Ibrahim. So, for today's episode, I have with us a very special guest. Her name is Vikkie J. She is a certified life coach, personal organizer, and podcast host that inspires her clients and listeners to live their best lives while embracing all that life brings. Her conversational approach cultivates a safe zone with no judgment, which makes the most difficult conversations seem welcoming. She attained a BS, a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science from Virginia Commonwealth University, and a doctorate in physical therapy from Howard University. Her podcast, called Talking with Vikkie J, is available on all major podcast platforms, including Google Podcast, Spotify, Public Radio, and Anchor FM. Vikkie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're with us today. The reason why I wanted you on the show was to talk about your how you're helping people through coaching. Now, this is something that I believe in life coaching, business coaching, having a mentor, having somebody to talk to about your challenges. Because as an entrepreneur, and a lot of the audience here are entrepreneurs, it can be very challenging to stay in business, to stay consistent. But when you have a life coach there and a mentor there and a business coach, it helps make it a lot easier. So yeah, I'm glad you're with us, and I want to kind of dive into the whole concept and the theory of coaching and the benefits of doing so and how you handle clients. Before we jump into that, do you mind sharing with us your background and how you got into coaching?
So, like you said, I am actually a physical therapist by profession. So, my little saying is, I'm a physical therapist by profession, but a life coach and organizer by passion. And so, basically, I was practicing for 5 years. And at year 5, I was like, okay, I like helping people, but I want to help it in a bigger magnitude. And the physical therapy is just not it. So, I went on like this soul searching.
Mhm.
And life coaching, I had actually never heard of it until last year. But when I read what it was about, I was like, this sounds it, because I love
Mhm.
encouraging people. I love helping people, get to accomplish goals, which is essentially what I do in physical therapy, but in life coaching, it's just a different aspect of it. It's not as physical, if you will. I've always loved organizing ever since a little girl. My room has always been organized. Like I go crazy if it's not neat. So I just kind of combined the two because they both were my passion. And so that's how I came up with Life Happens, personal coaching and organizing.
Nice. I love it. So you help people more so with planning, organizing. And I think that's really important. I think that sometimes when people have a lot of struggles in life, it's probably because their foundation is not organized or there's not enough clarity in
Yeah.
their lives. What are some things that you help people with being more organized or better planning?
Okay. So because I've had several different clientele.
Mhm.
So my other little saying that I say is I help people organize their time and their space. So I've had clients that have been doing things like trying to look for a new job, but needing help with just organizing their time, that accountability factor. That's
Mhm.
really what a coach is. We're that accountability person. We're not here to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. We're here as you're on this journey to help you kind of find your own answers, if you will, and then hold you accountable and encourage you. So, I've helped people with job searching. I've helped entrepreneurs kind of, if they have a big picture, like this is where I want to be, but there's so many different steps. How do I get there? I've helped them kind of strategize how to get to those places. I've even helped people with, weight loss journey and just trying to get back to, new moms, and they're trying to get back to exercising. So again, time management.
Yeah, absolutely. Accountability is for sure. That's something I highlighted that you said, accountability. You need somebody there, for example, that's gonna, hold you accountable because something crazy happens where it's like you work in a company, for example, and every assignment you have due, you do it on time, sometimes even earlier because you have a boss that's gonna hold you accountable. And
Right.
then the second you become self-employed, for a lot of people that I've seen this too on the financial planning side, they become self-employed, and it's like they have trouble getting things done because there's no boss anymore. They are their own bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So having a life coach for sure, being there, holding you accountable is key, and you have to hold yourself accountable, but it's easier to do when you have somebody else there, um, helping you. Now, what are some, for example, let's say I came to you and I was like, hey, Vikkie, I need some help. I need help being more organized. I need help with planning. What are some things you would ask me or, or help me with that would help me be more organized and better at planning?
So, the first thing I would want to know is, let's get a little bit more specific. So you said like, okay, I need help with organizing and
Mhm.
planning, but exactly what? So I kind of operate off of this, I call it the 3I
Yeah.
method or the triple I method, because you always have to identify what exactly is the problem or what is the goal, but you got to be specific with it. So you could
Yeah.
just say, I need help organize, but organizing what? Is it your time? Is it your paperwork? If you're an entrepreneur, when you're getting started, there's a lot of paperwork that's involved. You need help with that, with meeting those deadlines. And then the next thing is, let's identify, what are some hurdles? Why are you feeling like you're not organized? Okay. Is it, again, time management? Is it just that you never had to be organized because you've always been on somebody else's,
Yeah.
schedule or plan, especially being an entrepreneur? It's kind of like everything is you. It's your own timeline. And then the last thing is just coming up with a strategy for that. Once we've identified those two things, now let's come up with a strategy of how I'm going to help you organize. But the main thing is that I operate off of smart goals for everything. So, and a lot of people have heard this, especially in the business world, it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, obtainable, realistic, and then, time sensitive.
Mhm.
And so that's how I would typically, or that's how I do go about it, with my clientele. But the main thing is, I think people, when they want to set goals, they're not specific enough. You can't be that broad. You have to hone it in to make sure that it's realistic, and then be able to go back and reassess. Okay, this was the goal. This was my timeline. I didn't make it. Now, why did I not make it? What do I need to readjust so that you can be successful?
Absolutely, I love it. Yeah, and I agree with you. So, like for example, like somebody like when I said, oh, I need help, being more organized,
Mhm.
make it more specific. Now, what that does is it does, I think, two things. One is that it helps you better help me, and
Mhm.
then the second thing it does is it helps me understand more of the actual problem. And I see this too, like for example, on the financial planning side, where
Mhm.
somebody would say like, I just have a lot of debt, and then I'm like, well, how much? And they're like, I don't know, it's just a lot. And then I'm like, for example, like 5 credit cards. Well, how much is each one? Well, I don't know. Well, let's break it down, decompose it, and even name each debt. Like credit card number one, what's the name of it, and identify each of them.
Mhm.
And then when they do that, it does two things. It creates more clarity. It makes it more attainable, and
Right.
then it also it helps us actually identify a plan to address that that financial concern. So I love how you said you have to be specific, break it down, and then make it attainable. So somebody could say, for example, I want to be a millionaire. Well, let's what does that mean exactly? Like, all right, I want to have $1 million in my bank account in the next 10 years. Okay, well, that would mean, pretty simple. You would need 100,000 at least every year to accumulate it. And then I think when you start doing this, the listener, the client, the person you're talking to starts to become more confident.
Mhm.
And this is where life coaching comes in, is that you instill confidence into the person. They become more confident. You mentioned it's not about telling them like what to do, but asking them how to get there. Now, what are some ways that you help clients, for example, other than what we just mentioned? What are some ways that you help clients become more confident in themselves for them to take on more challenges in life?
So one of the things that I often have my clients do is identify, what are some what we call wins since
Mhm.
the last time that we've had our session. So wins can be big or small, and sometimes I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. Maybe you didn't meet that total big goal that you had, but you met one step towards getting to that goal. So that's the
Mhm.
number one thing. You have identifying what you did right. And so
Perfect. I love it. Yeah.
yeah, it helps with building, their confidence. Like, oh yeah, I did do that.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. Like one time I hired a coach to help me with my business, and one of the first things she asked was, "What has already worked for you in your life? What Let's lay out all the things that have worked for you, the positive things." And then now what this did was it allowed me to start thinking, just because my business isn't working right now doesn't mean it's never going to work.
Right.
So I started to, and then she would ask me, for example, like, why did that work for you? Why was it positive? What happened then? And now naturally, I started to connect those together and said, all right, if I do this in my business like I did in the past, I'll probably see positive results. And it's my, we test it out. So that's smart. Now she was pretty much telling me what to do without telling me what to do. Exactly. Like I was in control of it. So yeah, I love it. I definitely, I love it. Let's talk about your podcast. What was the intent behind the podcast? And just for the listeners to know, I was actually on your show. So yeah, thank you for having me on there. Um,
Yeah.
tell us about your show, what it is, and what is the intent of having the show?
So when I started the show about 2 or 3 years ago, it really was something that was just fun for me to do. I just wanted to go on there and to have different topics and discuss different topics in an environment that was like just judge free. So we talked about everything from, you coming on doing finance, relationships,
Mhm.
religion, all kinds of different things. And so that's really just my platform, just having these, and sometimes it's these hard conversations. So we've talked about, race and racial injustices and,
Yeah.
voting, whatever is kind of going on in that season, we talk about it. So that's why it's called Talking with Vikkie J.
Great. Have you been using it as a way to attract, and this is a business part of me coming out, but have you used it as a way to attract new clients for your coaching business?
So that I have not, because when I started the podcast, I did not have a business. So now that I'm a year into my business, and see, I've gotten me a business coach too. So even though I'm a coach, coach still needs a coach. That was encouraged for me to do. So I will start shifting that to kind of encourage, people coming into my world, because a lot of my listeners don't even know I have my own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And back to that coach I mentioned, the one I hired a couple of years ago, when she told me she also had a coach, that also like brought more confidence to me. It was like, all right, everybody needs a coach or a mentor, somebody to talk to. I think, in my opinion, it's almost impossible to do completely on your own with just containing all those challenges. You need somebody to talk to. So yeah, even coaches have coaches for sure. And then yeah, obviously, and I think as far as using your podcast to attract more people, I think that's a really good idea, because coaching is it's a relationship business, right? It's not something, you're not buying shoes, or you're not buying, some sort of hard commodity that's going to be the same everywhere. It's
Right.
customized, and it's almost like you're bringing on a new friend into your life, or somebody else. You need to be comfortable with them. So I think a podcast would be a good way to share that experience with other people before they actually hire you, where it's like, hey, and then like you said, you have friends and family that don't even know what you do. So if you just, instead of saying, hey, I do this business, you could just say, hey, I have a podcast, check it out. And in the podcast would say, what you talk about and things like that. That's actually why I started this show, Thinking Like a Bank. So that way I could kind of take everything I'm doing, the financial planning stuff, the coaching stuff. I have accountants on here, lawyers, and bring it all together, wrap it all up together, and then just share it with everybody, friends, family, colleagues, whoever I come across. I could just share it with them, and then they can experience what it would be like working with us. Now, some people might say that it's kind of like overwhelming choosing a coach. What are some things that one should consider before hiring a coach and working with them?
That is really a good question. So I'm probably going to give you maybe 2 or 3 things. I mean, so the first thing is that a lot of coaches, and I do believe this, say that, the coach don't find the clientele, the clientele finds the coach.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you really have to do your research when you're out there looking for a coach, and you need to know what kind of coach
Uh-huh.
you need. There's like 99 to 100 different niches which within coaching.
Yes.
Like mine is more so like life skills with the time management, work-life balance, organizing. But there's other niches. People do things with family, with like grieving. So you need to know what kind of
Yeah.
coach you're looking for, and then do your due diligence. The other thing is just like with coaching, you might have to have more, or you might find one might not be a good fit, and that's okay too, is what I'm trying to say. It might take more than one try to get the right fit. So that's very important. So those would be the two things. You need to know what kind of coach you're looking for. Do your due diligence with the research, try it out. Don't be afraid, to try it out.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you're so right. There's so many different kinds of coaches. There are coaches that are more on the business side, where they're
Right.
heavily involved in your business. They might even have a similar background where it's like, for example, if I have a business coach for financial planning, maybe he or she ran a financial planning business, and that's how they know how to do business
Right.
coaching towards financial planners.
Right.
And then you could be on the complete other side where it's more so like, I don't want to say counseling, that's very different, but it's kind of in that same area where it's like you're talking to people maybe post traumatic issues or grieving, something like that. That's going to be completely different than the business coaching side. And then you might even go in between it where it's like somebody's just working on you and helping you reach your goals. So,
Right.
and another thing too that's cool is that it doesn't need, like, for example, let's just say you are on the business side and you are looking to grow. It doesn't have to be with somebody who has a prior experience in your background, meaning that like my background in financial planning, I could hire somebody who was a coach to lawyers or accountants in the past. Maybe I
Right.
could use some of those skills too. So like you said, you're going to try it out, maybe even hire different people. Some people have numerous coaches at the same time for
For
different
different
areas.
things, for different
Yeah.
areas. Exactly, exactly. But the last piece of that is
Yeah.
that once you've done those two things, make sure that you are willing to do the work. Because,
Yeah.
like I said before, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to be on the journey with you and kind of help you find your way. It's how I like to say it. So again, we're not here to tell you what to do. So you have to be motivated and willing to. And that's one of the questions I always ask my clients, like, what brought you to wanting to work with the coach, and how ready are you to see the change that you're saying you want to see?
Exactly. Yeah. You can't just, for example, hire a coach and then think that all your problems are going to be solved. You have to be, before you even do that, you have to be willing. And I think that, like you said, reaching out to a coach, talking, that's already a huge step forward. A lot of people won't even take that step. So
Mhm.
that's a huge sign of success right there, just reaching out to a coach. And then two, it's like you have to do the work. This is like, for example, comparing it to like going to the dentist. You go to the dentist obviously when you need to take care of your teeth, but at the same time the dentist isn't going to brush your teeth every day. You have to do that for yourself. you
Yes.
know so
Mhm.
like, what are some activities you give your clients to do? Like, for example, let's just say you had one client that you were going to meet with on a weekly basis. What are
Mhm.
some things that you would give that client to do in the meantime between the meetings?
So again, that's going to be very client specific,
Hmm.
depending on what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So I'll just give you some previous examples from
Hmm.
other clients. So I've had clients who are really trying to work on time management, being, a mom, a wife, but a stay-at-home mom. So they were trying to get back into the exercising. So we actually, within the meeting that we have, our session, would come up with those things. But the thing about it is I'm not telling them, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this. We are going back to those three things I talk about, the 3 I's.
Yeah.
And then when you, from that, you pull your strategy. So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to start working out and I want to work out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then the question is, how long are you going to want to do that? And is that feasible for you to do 15 minutes, or is it feasible for you to do 30 minutes like you want to do? Okay. And then that's what I would call their, I don't call it homework, I call it heart work in
Hmm.
my session. So then that would be their heart work. So that's what they would do in between the next time that we would meet. And then for me personally, I like to check up on my clients in between, just to give them encouragement. Hey, how did it go? So that we kind of know, okay, so for this next session, it didn't go so well, or it went really well. Now we can progress. So heart work is, to answer your question simply, but to go into specifics, it would have to be a specific goal.
I love it. Yeah, your clients are very lucky to have you, to have them checking in on them in the meantime. And then, yeah, it makes a big difference when, for example, let's say that I told you like next week I have this big client I want to talk to,
Mhm.
next week, Tuesday, for example. And
Mhm.
then, Tuesday evening or Tuesday afternoon or even Wednesday morning, you text me, hey, how did it go with that client?
Mhm.
Then now I'm going to get the sense that like, all right, you know what, the next client I have, I'm going to tell Vikkie all about it.
Mhm.
I,
Mhm.
you know, and it's all about that like encouragement to do
Mhm.
the next thing and to talk about that next thing, that big win that you have, and it creates momentum because then you're like, all right, I won there, and then I also won there. Where else can I win to now? I have the capability now to keep winning in different areas of life.
Right. That's true. The biggest thing I found as far as doing coaching, being a coach, is perspective. It's really
Yeah.
all about perspective. And once you identify this is the perspective I have, but I need to switch it, that's when you start to see the change.
Hmm.
So that's the biggest thing. The biggest word that pops into my head about coaching is perspective. What is your perspective?
Hmm. Exactly. Yep. Definitely. We see this too with like Big on Yourself and on the financial planning side, where it's like, you know, clients might be too concerned about the method, like, you know, how does this work? But really, it's about your perspective. Like, where are you now financially? Where do
Mhm.
you want to go? And then from there, we figure out if Big on Yourself could help you reach those goals, you know, based off of your perspective. So I love it.
Right.
I think there's a lot of overlap between, you know, the financial planning side and the coaching side. I think they connect hand in hand. I don't even like to say really I'm a financial planner. I like to say I'm more of a financial coach.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, but you know what? You can say that because honestly, like I went through a course and so I have a certification for
Mhm.
it. But honestly, I don't know if I should say this, but anybody could actually put up a be like, I'm a coach, honestly, and
Yeah.
then just start coaching. So yeah, you're a coach.
Well, that's the thing, Vicky, is that the podcast and all the other content that you create differentiates you from other people who just have, you know, a certificate. You know,
Right.
this is where we know, and yeah, you're right. Anybody could be anything they want, but being that unique voice and that value to the value, the ability to provide value to other people, I think that's what people will come to. People won't come to you just because of the certification you have. They'll
Right.
come to you because of you, Vicky, you know, because of, you know, your podcast, because of your voice, because of the way you think, your reasoning, and the way you connect with people. So yeah, I love it. How can it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
How can listeners connect with you and learn more about you?
So, like you mentioned, I do have the podcast Talking with Vikkie J. Now,
Mhm,
Vikkie is spelled Vikkie and
mhm,
then just the letter J. I
mhm.
am on Facebook and Instagram, and that's Talkin' without the G with Vikkie J.
Okay.
And then I do have a website, and that's lifehappenswithvikkiej.com. So those are the three ways you can connect with me. Just send me a message.
Perfect. And I did, yeah, I checked out your website. It's really nice, very professionally done,
Thank you.
super clear. Yeah, I'll be sure to add in all the links to everything you mentioned in the show notes below. If you guys can, please subscribe, share the episode, and I appreciate Vicky. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
To learn more about what we do and how we can help you grow more wealth, please visit www.finassetprotection.com. That's FIN assetprotection.com. The topics presented in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purposes of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation.